Bonjour, I'm Maneli Jamal. I'm from Canada. I'm an acoustic guitar player, and what you just heard was a piece of mine called On the Run, and this is a song inspired by a train ride that my family and I had to take. So I was really trying to conceptualize how to make train sounds with an acoustic guitar, and more specifically, solo acoustic guitar. As many of you guitar players know, there's so much to be discovered with an acoustic guitar. And I've just really taken the time to explore maybe some unorthodox techniques that I want to explain to you guys watching today. And in this first example, this is basically the main theme of the song. It might look a little bit weird because I got my right hand on the fretboard doing a little tapping. And what I'm doing is I'm using my middle finger, tapping it right on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. And this is in the tuning of open C. So we have a C, G, C, G, C, C. A lot of C's and G's. And this is very reminiscent to Persian music, which is where I'm from. I'm from Iran originally, and we play Persian music there. And so in this little piece here, I'm going to be doing a hammer-on with my right hand middle finger on the 3rd fret, followed by index finger on the 7th fret of the 2nd string, right there. And that's basically just doing it on 1, 2. And after this, I'm going to be using my middle finger on the 8th fret of the G string, or the 3rd string. So basically, I'm going hammer on with the left hand, pull off with the right hand, and then hammer on with the left hand again with the middle finger. So we have really slowly, it sounds like this. And after this, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, hammer on again with the right hand. So. And then we're going to actually pull off with the index finger on the left hand. So this is going to take a little bit of coordination with both of the hands, but once you get this down, it's a flow. And think about that train ride that we're trying to conceptualize with this, trying to get this constant moving sound. This is more like the gears in the train working right now here. Now I do some variations of this as well by sometimes hammering it on kind of as a syncopated note. Now this exact same thing can be moved down 1 fret, everything together. Left and right hand can go down. Now you get this very dark sounding thing because you're just kind of going down a half step with the same thing. But if you go back and forth between the two, you can really get the sense of this moving train. If you really want to spice it up a little bit more, you can do that exact same thing. Since this is a C note here and this is a C note here on the low string as well, you can actually do that exact same thing as an exercise on this low string. Again, this is just more of an exercise to just develop both of the hands working together, because this is not something that's going to come right away. If you've never done a tapping exercise like this before, this can be really, really awkward at first. And that's what it was for me at first when I discovered this piece. It was a really uncomfortable feeling, but once you do it enough times, it just becomes a flow and it becomes that train ride that, again, we're trying to just really conceptualize with this piece. So in this exercise, we're going to be looking at more of the bridge of this piece. And in this specific part, I'm really trying to explore some really unorthodox techniques here, because now we're going to be playing behind the nut. Again, and my question is always, how do you make these sounds musical? You know, a lot of players might play something and then just do it once as a kind of like a gimmick or something like this. But for me, it's always been more about this and trying to really get these sounds of some of the natural sounds that you might hear from a train naturally. So I just thought, how cool would this be if I were to do this? But then I said with the right hand, you know, what can we do here? And what I'm doing with the right hand, first of all, you really have to start muting the string, the 6th string, with your palm. This is really weird because once you mute this, and if you play and tap a note with the right hand index finger, you get a buzz, you get a little of a buzzing sound. Now again, the way I see it is if you can get a buzzing sound and make it musical, you can get something very different and something very unusual. And if you do it in a rhythmic way, oftentimes it sounds okay. It sounds like it's done intentionally and it's done on purpose. So in this exercise, I'm going to be holding that low E string with the palm, and then I'm going to be tapping with the index finger. And at this time, as I hold this down, I'm going to be tapping with my left hand here in the index finger. So again, getting extra buzz. But notice that the sound here is much different than the sound here. It's more or less kind of similar, but if you do it in a rhythmic flow, you get the variation of both of those together. So what I'm doing here, the very first thing the way I started, I actually do a little slap here with all the strings, muting everything, and then I'm going to be brushing it up. But as I brush this up, my palm is already resting on that string 6, getting ready for that hit. And the pattern here is this. I'm doing a hammer on, then hammer on with the left hand. So right hand, left hand, pull off with the right hand. And then pull off with the left hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, very unusual sounds. Make sure you practice this alone, because if you have people around you listening to this, they're going to freak out. Now, once you have this down, you can always bring it up to that next step. And that next step is now incorporating those little choo-choo sounds that you might hear from a train, right? So what I'm doing there, instead of basically doing that hammer on, that pull off with the left hand, you're going to take that index finger on the left hand and move it behind the nut. And you're going to do a hammer on first of all, as if you would do it regularly on the first fret. Hammer on, pull off. So all you're doing is you're substituting the left hand fingering for behind the nut. Now this is a little bit weird to transcribe in tabs, because I know many of you are probably reading this maybe with tabs or trying to figure this out with tabs. And this is something that many software, guitar tab software hasn't really been able to do accurately. So it's very important that you watch this as you are practicing this, right? So what I'm doing there, I'm switching now to the lower 3 strings on the left hand behind the nut, okay? So you can really experiment with the top 3 and the lower 3. So what I'm doing the first time, I'm going top, then bottom, top, bottom, or sorry, top, all right? So again, very unusual sounds coming out of the guitar. Now, the next part is to do this exact same thing, but finally releasing the palm on the right hand. All right, it almost sounds metal. You know, if you were to do this and have like electric guitars and some drums with it, you could really get like a metal sound. And I'm very much so inspired and influenced by a lot of metal music, because I was listening to it very early on as I was discovering the guitar. Okay, so in this exercise we'll be looking at a flamenco technique. And you might be wondering, what are we doing with the flamenco technique on a steel string guitar? But for me, it's always been about exploring as many different genres as possible and fusing them together to create something rich and unique, and that is more individual to you as a player. So the way I see it is, the more techniques that you know from other genres, the better and more clearly and articulately you can be able to express what you're trying to do emotionally. So this is a rasgueados technique, and this is not how a real flamenco would play it, I don't think. I mean, I kind of developed it from just, I think by accident actually. It just happened, and over time I was able to develop the flow of the rasgueados. And it's basically, I'm just going to show you how to do it with just muting everything first. So you get just a dead mute sound here. And what I'm doing here, I'm going to be using my ring finger to flick it out, followed by my middle finger, index finger. Now this is coming from my palm. This is very important, because if you just do it regularly like this, you're not going to get a lot of sound. And so it's very important to flick the fingers out. flick them out from your palm. Now, I do want to mention that I do have nails. I have acrylic gels on my fingers. Now, this is very important because part of this technique is doing the flick out, but part of it is actually going back in. You're doing the exact same fingering, so ring finger, middle finger, index finger, followed by ring finger in, middle finger in, index finger in. All right, now if you don't have nails, you're going to get a very bright sound going down, but a very warm sound going up. So this is a technique that's very important to do with nails if you want to get a very consistent sound. Now, you don't have to do that. You know, you can kind of experiment and see if you can get a similar sound. So this is what I'm doing. I'm going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So basically 2 sets of triplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if you do this, right now it doesn't sound so great because it's done a little bit slower, but this technique is meant to be played a little bit quicker, and you get this sort of walking of the fingers, right? This is in slow motion what it looks like. Now you might be wondering, why is my pinky finger moving as well? Because the hand has to be very relaxed, very relaxed. So the more relaxed you are, the quicker you can play. I'm sure you've heard a lot of guitar players maybe tell you that with left hand or right hand. And if you're able to move your arms freely as you're doing these sorts of things, the quicker and more accurately you can play, actually. So with this, I'm going to be basically holding a chord on the 8th fret, basically using my middle finger here on the 8th fret of the low 6th string, pinky finger on the 8th fret of the 1st string, and then my ring finger here on the 8th fret of the B string or 2nd string. Again, not a very pleasant sounding chord, but that's not the point here. The point here of this chord is the resolution, that it goes from this chord into open C. Okay? So a good way to practice this is you can hold this chord if you want. And you can do this sort of 6-tuplet run with the right hand. Again, I would really encourage you first to just hold everything, get a mute sound, and get this going. It's even difficult for me to play it very slow because I've just been able to, I played so fast now, it's very difficult to play something like this a little bit slower. But there it is. And if you really want to speed it up, so you get this like flurry of notes, this butterfly of like almost like a machine gun or something, right? And this is a very effective tool if you're like maybe concluding a song, right? If you want to end a song. So say, just for example, I'm playing. You know, so something like this can really give it that power at the very end. And especially if you're playing at a bar or something where people are not listening or talking, you do this technique, everyone's going to be moving their heads and wondering, what is that guy doing? So this is the rasgueados technique.